Meet Blaine Bartell. Blaine is a freedom coach, best-selling author, and creative communicator. He lives with a boundless passion to help people like you discover the joy of honest-to-goodness freedom. Ever wonder what it would be like to be free from that one thing that continuously sabotages the life you long for? Then open your eyes. Prepare your heart. Because this is what freedom looks like.
Hey friends, Blaine Bartell here on Live Free, and it is so good to see you. If you would, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share it, like it, leave some comments or feedback. We'd love to hear from you. So I want to talk about one of the most important things in living into a new freedom in our life. If we've been stuck in a world of sin, stuck in a world of pornography, stuck in a world of some kind of addiction, how do we begin, especially right at the beginning, to find our freedom? And I can tell you one of the most important things in my life that I began to engage in right away was boundaries. I had to begin to have some defined boundaries in my life. The people that I hung with, the places that I went, the things that I looked at, the kind of technology that I had. In fact, I have a quote here, and I've actually included a whole section. In fact, I forget which station it is. It might be station 2 or 3, but we do a whole station in our Catheros curriculum for men on how to create good, healthy boundaries in our life. And there's a quote in that workbook. It says this: if our boundaries are not unreasonable, uncomfortable, and unassailable, you will be unsuccessful. And I found that to be true in my life. You say, well, where do you get this? Or why do we need boundaries? Or what does the Bible really say about boundaries? It's interesting that the first time Jesus ever talked about lust was in the Sermon on the Mount. He talked about if we lust in our hearts and in an adulterous way that we've already committed that sin. But it's interesting, right after that, he says this. He says in Matthew chapter 6 that if your right eye offends you or causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. Can you imagine that? So you got an eye here and it becomes offensive and it looks at something that it shouldn't be looking at. And it says, if you have an eye like that, looking towards lust, it says gouge it out and throw it away. Do you know there's actually been people that have done that? Do you know there's saints, even way back as early as the first couple centuries in the church, who literally gouged out their eyes because of their own lust? That's amazing, right? Do you think Jesus was actually asking us to gouge out an eye or cut off a member of our body if we had continued to sin in that area? I don't think so. I think this was a metaphor for something really even deep in our life, because obviously, you cut off an arm doesn't mean you're not going to have a heart to steal anymore. If you gouge out your eye, it doesn't mean there's not going to be lust in your heart anymore. And so obviously that's not the answer. Here's what Jesus is saying. He's saying you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get rid of lust. Because it's pretty unreasonable. If a guy walked into your church next week and his eye was missing, and he said, what happened to your eye? And he said, well, I just had a porn problem. You'd think he was unreasonable. You'd think he was crazy. You'd think he was radical. So we have to be willing to do the unreasonable, the radical, the unassailable, to begin to find freedom. And I remember in the first, especially year of my new life and living into freedom, I had to create some powerful high boundaries in my life. I literally got rid of my smartphone. I had a little flip phone because I didn't want access to the internet. I had to get rid of my computer because that was the gateway to all of my sin. It was the gateway to all of the broken parts of my life, and I knew that I couldn't handle either one of those responsibly in that time. I had to have an accountability that everywhere I went, I had to, check in with people and check in with brothers and make sure, that I felt like I wasn't alone. I had to really guard myself against isolation. I didn't travel anymore because when I would travel, I'd find myself isolated and anonymous. And because I was alone, I found myself going places and getting into trouble that I wouldn't have got into trouble with if I was with someone. So I stopped traveling. I created stark, powerful, daily boundaries. And you know what happened? My boundaries began to shape my behavior. And so over time, when I did get a computer back and I did get a smartphone back, I still had boundaries because I had covenant eyes, and I had a friend that would get a report every week and know where I was. And you know what? I can tell you this, that I just began to feel like I'm not alone with this stuff anymore. I knew that my brother Michael was going to get my report, and if there was a place that I'd went, we'd have a conversation about that, and it would be loving and caring and grace-oriented. But gradually over time, because I had those boundaries, guess what? I just stopped going to porn sites. I just stopped, exploring lust on my phone or on my computer. And it began to change the way I lived and the way I behaved. And all of a sudden, my boundaries began to help to form my behavior. And so I'm going to ask you this. What is Jesus asking you to gouge out of your life? What is it right now that is causing you to stumble, that is causing you to fall into sin that is destructive and that is breaking you? Is it a relationship? Is it a form of technology? Is it a place that you just frequent and you know every time you go there, it's not going to turn out good? What is it? Be radical enough, unreasonable enough to say, no more. I'm not going to give the enemy, I'm not going to give my sin a foothold anymore. Listen, I'd love to help you. If you're struggling on a pretty heavy scale with pornography or with lust, or you feel addicted to this world and this life, I want to encourage you to go to our website. Go to blainebartel.com. Check out Katharos, the Jesus path to sexual purity. You can do it alone. There's 8 videos. There's a workbook. It will help you. It will help you to dig deep. There's homework in between each week, or you can be a part of a group or even help to lead a group and facilitate a group of men and go through this together. Reach out to us. Check out the website. We'd love to help you, and there's a place that you can reach out to us and contact us. Thank you for being with us today. Make sure you hit subscribe. Tell your friends about Live Free. God bless you. We'll see you next time.